VGK with its second consecutive overtime win over the Wild leaves Minnesota on the brink of elimination. Brett Howden gives VGK a 3-2 series lead as he scores the game winner. Our recap and more next on this edition of Locked On Golden Knights.
You're Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick from Las Vegas. I am a longtime sportscaster, a marketing consultant, and the host of the new Believe in Vegas podcast. Chris is a VGK season ticket holder, owner of Silver State Cards and Sports, and the collectibles editor of the Hockey News. Coming up ahead, we've got Eichel and Stone coming back with big games, and Bruce Cassidy trusts all four lines in overtime. We are brought to you today by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Back-to-back overtime wins for the Vegas Golden Knights. We had Ivan Barbashev scoring the game winner in Game 4. And last night here on home ice, it was Brett Howden in the 3-2 victory. And VGK goes back to Minnesota Thursday night with a chance to wrap up this series, leading 3-2. Your guy, Tanner Pearson made the game-winning play happen. I know in the postgame, I know that Cassidy was talking a lot about Kolasar. Yes, he chips the puck in. But your guy, Pearson, he won the board battle over the undersized, pint-sized Marco Rossi right behind the net. And Pearson gets the puck, kicks it loose, gets it over to Nick Hague, gets a pass on the far wall from Pearson, and then Hague pinching deep on that play, gambling perhaps on the final play, gets the puck back to Pearson. Pearson below the goal line. He backhands a pass to Howden right towards the net. He's diving down, and he beats Marc-Andre Fleury, who was in the game starting in the third period for Philip Gustafsson, who was taken ill. And Pearson, to me, made that play happen. And Howden now with 3 goals in this series, and VGK sends it back to Minnesota with a chance to wrap up this series.
It's a greasy overtime goal right there. It's the type of goal that you just kind of, you don't expect it to happen the way it does, and the puck pops out, and boom, here we go. We'll talk more about Cassidy rolling all 4 lines in overtime later and stuff, but it just shows the depth of the team. You had everything, right? You got Eichel and Stone getting back to good, more on them later as well. And then the 4th line gets the greasy goal, and it's what a range of emotions, right? I mean, it was just, you see the puck go in, you see the failed challenge, and then all of a sudden they're challenging for offsides, and just so many things happening right there. And then to get that the pinnacle of a moment at the end with Brett Howden scoring that goal. What a night. Me and Chris were talking on the way home, trying to think about the craziest playoff games we've seen, and that might be, as far as on home ice, the most intense ending and most emotional game maybe in the history of that arena.
VGK early with that lead 1-0, the shorthanded goal, the 2-on-1, Eichel to Carlson. But 13 seconds later, Kirill Kaprizov scoring 5-hole again on Adin Hill. And then Mark Stone off the Eichel feed, 2-1 VGK. Carlson, not used to that net front presence, a little bit clumsy in front, falls down, and could have been goal.
Setting a good screen on the goal, you said, right, Tony? Is that what you said?
No, I said clumsy. I did say that. And then, of course, the reason why the Wild hung in this game, though, in that second period was the Gus Bus. Gustafsson, unbelievable. The Wild killing back-to-back penalties. VGK, 0 for 3 on the man advantage. Cassidy was miffed because they interviewed him on the bench right before that second power play opportunity. He wanted Theodore to shoot the puck in. VGK previously on the previous power play, Chris, had missed Hurdle in the bumper, and Cassidy wanted Hurdle in that net front battle. But to their credit again, they mixed things up, did the Wild, where they went with a diamond type of a structure. They had a diamond structure, and they turned back VGK on the power play. Is it as much VGK having issues with that power play unit or good defense by the Wild?
They had an incredible chance. It was in the second period. I don't know how much time was left, but they exposed that diamond that the Wild were playing when there was just this tic-tac-toe passing play where it got to Hurdle in the slot, and I think he just missed the shots. So that was unfortunate, and they had some opportunities. There's still, if the goal, again, if we're not getting ahead of ourselves, people relax, but if the Golden Knights advance, possibly against the Oilers, here we go there, more of that probably later in the week, but if the Golden Knights do advance, the Oilers or the Kings, whoever the Golden Knights face, they will be scouting what the Minnesota Wild are doing on the blue line when the Golden Knights are trying to make that entry. That's where everything starts. And the Wild, I think, have had a really good series on the PK, not allowing the Golden Knights a clean entry. Of course, a clean entry sets everything in motion. You feel like there should be a couple more shots every now and then on the power play, a little better net front presence as well. That wasn't there. I understand Cassidy harping about Theodore shooting a little bit more, and he did at times, but I'll say it again. The Golden Knights, I haven't seen the tic-tac-toe play to the bumper. Not like the bumper, the pass to the bumper usually comes from below the nets, and then it's usually a high danger chance from close range. This was different. The one play where they got it to Hurdle, I think it was Eichel on the elbow. It should have gone in. Like I said, I don't know if it was tipped at the last second or what it was, but it's something else the Golden Knights have in their weaponry, I guess you can call it, for the power play. I'm not too worried about the power play overall. What I am more worried about is Pavel Dorofeev. Maybe we'll park that one for if we have a couple days before before a preview next week.
Yeah, for sure. Matt Boldy tying the game in the third. Carlson stuck on the wall in that play. Eriksson Ek gets out a backhanded flip and gets it up ice. And Boldy, geez, that top line for Minnesota is something else. And then the big play, of course, late in the game, Ryan Hartman scores the goal. First, a review on whether he kicked the puck into the net. That gives VGK some time to review itself and see with its video guy if there was an offside on that same play. And then we have the appeal by VGK. We saw initially, though, Toronto said he did not intentionally kick the puck into the net. We have to get that clear first. And then Cassidy challenges offside. Very close, but you could tell on the replay. Gustav Nyquist was offside.
Your guy, Nyquist.
I thought he'd score the game winner, and that goal was erased. But big play for VGK. Great job by the video team once again for the Golden Knights. But that kicking motion or lack thereof, and that review from Toronto gives VGK a little bit more time to review offside. That's one of the first things Cassidy said that they review, that they take a look at on any goal. So good job by the VGK, and tough luck for the Wild.
Real fast.
Oh, yeah. And it saved our blank.
Bacon. Real fast before that, the Boldy goal, Pietrangelo just gets flat-footed, and Eichel had a turnover. Eichel couldn't stop the puck.
He's
coming
awful.
Through the neutral zone.
He's been awful. Pietrangelo's been awful.
It was a bad game for Pietrangelo. It was a bad game. And I don't know who was it, Haig, or I didn't see who got beat on the kicking goal. I didn't see, but it was a very similar circumstance where a defender got beat.
I think Petro was involved.
I mean, it's even if he's on the bench, he's involved. Blame him anyway. No, so what a range of emotions, like we started to open up with. And Cassidy talked a lot about the video process. There you go for our Canadian friends. They knew they were challenging for offside early on in that sequence. They knew early on in that sequence offsides was going to be challenged for. They had to go through the process first. The process was The refs getting together on the ice. They call it a good goal. The second part of that process is an automatic review initiated by Toronto. A good goal. I mean, it was a deflection. It wasn't the only thing that caught my attention at the game that looked a little bit strange was you saw his left foot go up in like a kind of like looked like a kicking motion, but that was after the fact. It was just part of his skating and everything. Clean goal, no questions asked once you watch it. And then so me and Chris, the goal happens. We watch the review from our seats upstairs. The goal is allowed. So we get on the elevator to go downstairs to watch the end of the game and beat the traffic before, so we don't get stuck in that stupid garage getting out of there. So we go to our spot downstairs to watch the end of the game. And while we're on the elevator, I see they're challenging something. I couldn't tell what because they got the TVs on in there. And then when we got downstairs to our section below, we saw they were challenging offsides. They showed on the video on the Nitron that it was clearly offsides. Like, oh, okay. And then the crowd just goes absolutely bonkers. And, like I said, just so many emotions watching that happen. And easily one of the most memorable playoff games for me, no questions asked. But full credit, I forgot, was it Tim? I forgot his name. Full credit to the video review team. And
is that his name? Rogowski, something?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I'm sorry, I don't know that offhand, but
Lebowski.
Yeah, well, I watched the Big Lebowski recently.
The Big Lebowski.
No, full credits. And again, this is the poise, if you will, of the moment. There's, when the building's burning, so to speak, everyone's flipping out, and in the arena, credit the coaching staff, credit the video review team to just, relax, take that deep breath, like Cassidy mentioned, between the third and fourth period, I guess, for staying calm and collected. And okay, press the button. Challenge, plays coming back. Let's play. Let's start over.
Okay, the hometown X saying that the barn was going bananas last night. There was a period where it was quiet in there.
Of course it was. They sucked the life out the Wild. Right. Full credit to them.
It went really quiet in there, so the barn wasn't crazy all
Listen,
night.
really fast. Early on in the game, I looked at Chris and said, "This is the best crowd so far of the entire season." They were hanging out every single moment.
Did you tell him he was sitting in a barn?
I know we called it the house, I think, or something that, whatever. But it was phenomenal early on, and then Wild scored those goals, and a lot of nervous energy in the third period. And then obviously, what happened at the end. Quick statistical news and notes: Golden Knights again. I've been watching the high danger chances, favored 13-8, including 2-0 in overtime. X goals for Golden Knights won that match as well. I don't have what was it? Oh, they actually lost the X goals for 307 to 278. So the Golden Knights have been on the right side and looking at some of the advanced analytics as well in this series. So shifting back to Minnesota, Golden Knights got all the momentum, and it's not just about the results, but they're winning the statistical battles as well right now.
Pavel Dorofeev did not come out for the third period. He was out in the third period. Yeah. So I don't know what the case was, but we'll have to check in on that.
Dorofeev's been a ghost. And someone did point something out nicely when I
because he was out of the situation. Period. I don't know what the story was. Do you think?
Yeah, no, I will look that up during things you don't catch in real time.
Right.
But what I say about Dorofeev is someone pointed out that Marchessault didn't get going until round 2 in his Conn Smythe year. So maybe Dorofeev will figure it out. But this was something that I was a little concerned about coming into the playoffs was, could Dorofeev adjust to a playoff game? Right now, the answer is no, but the youngster is learning as well. So not going to get on him too hard, but in the same breath, if they went to Victor Olofsson in the last game instead of Dorofeev, I would not be upset about it.
There were droughts again, long droughts for each team. It was kind of funny because on the television broadcast, with the national broadcast, they were saying
didn't play the third.
Yeah, did not play at the third.
No, he's at 17:32 ice time total. That just seems odd, but I'm looking right now.
Okay, yeah, something was up with him. They reported he was not in. I didn't see him in the third period at all. And so the droughts, there were some droughts. So on TV, they're like, okay, so Marc-Andre Fleury's coming into the game there. Gustafsson went out. He was taken ill. And so they're like, you need to shoot at Fleury. 11 minutes later in that period, UGK finally puts a shot on net. And so there were some long droughts for both teams in that game, something to keep an eye on as well.
Dorofeev had 5 shifts in the third and 5 shifts in the third period, according to the shift chart.
Okay, they reported, I don't remember seeing him on the ice. and they reported that he wasn't on the bench to start
6
the third.
shifts in the third period for Dorofeev.
Do you remember seeing him? Either way, he was a ghost.
I
Either
mean,
way,
I
you're
was.
right.
He had an open net that he missed pretty blatantly. I think in the second period that I thought should have gone in. I don't recall
Yeah. I
him
remember
being
that.
involved much in the third period, but he definitely had 5 shifts.
Okay, well, that clears that up. And wasn't Brett Howden sick? He was one of those guys who was
The
was
entire
ill.
fourth line was the entire fourth line, and then now Gustafsson as well. Apparently, he got sick too.
That's because they were hugging him in the net.
Hey,
Too much.
whatever.
Too
Great.
much.
They're all going to be sick
Too much
now. Here
bad
come the
friends
Silver Knights to
present.
save the season.
Okay, coming up next, we will take a look at the Eichel and Stone games. They both deliver big in game number 5. We'll talk about it next, right here on this edition of Locked On Golden Knights. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is absolutely giving all the new customers an incredible way to get in on all the action. So, right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's right. If your bet wins, you get $250 in bonus bets. And I definitely like how it makes betting so easy. Whether you are picking your favorite team, I would not bet on the Knicks with my life, or diving into player props. You got to check it out. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back on this edition of Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick reporting from Las Vegas. We appreciate you making us your first listen every day. Find us wherever you get your podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to our Locked On Golden Knights YouTube channel. Fridays are WTF Day. Saturdays, sometimes the Chris Jr. Show.
Oh, Chris is all excited. He said Chris's quote last night driving home, the Chris and Chris show is back.
He said it's back. It is so back, right?
Okay.
It is so back. So last night, did you stay till the end of the game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The cutoff, if it went to 2 overtimes, we were leaving school night, but he gets 1 overtime during school nights.
Is that how it goes? 1 OT?
It was funny because Amanda texted me. She's like, hey, so overtime or whatever. I said, yeah, 1 overtime, we'll stay. She's like, wait, you leave? There's 2 overtimes? I'm like, yeah, we're leaving if there's 2 overtimes. It's school night.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't that difficult getting out, or it took a little minute?
No, we got it. I mean, if you get out, the key is getting like the second the game ends, you got to be walking. As long as you're like to the facade or walking, the second that happens, you cruise right out of the Park MGM event garage or ARIA event garage, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
We're home. We were home inside of 22 minutes. We take 95, go through downtown, out to Henderson, piece of cake.
So you'll be back for Game 7, is what you're saying.
Game 1, hopefully, but yes.
So Bruce Cassidy, we talked about this yesterday. He could see Jack Eichel starting to elevate his game. That's what he said in game number 4. Cassidy kept the lines that he ended with in game 4 into game 5, surprisingly. So you had Eichel with Carlson and Dorofeev, and later Stone was on that top line. That's why another reason why I thought Dorofeev might have been MIA. But this was a top line, buzzing early. Eichel keying the 2-on-1 breakout. He fed Carlson, who does it best because it was an open net for that first goal. And then the second goal, Eichel onto the stick of Stone, who finished. And it's safe to say that both players now are back in the mix. They've returned. But Eichel still looks a little stressed. Is he pushing? Is he grinding a little bit too much, do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking at the face-off. So, I mean, here's one of the reasons this is definitely a good move. to put Carlson and Eichel together. Number one, Carlson won 8 of 9 faceoffs, 89%, and Eichel was 5 and 4. He was 56%. So you're matching up those two against the other team's top line, which means the Golden Knights were starting with puck possession. Assuming it was line one against line one all the time, the Golden Knights were starting with puck possession 13 of 18 times as far as the faceoff. So that's important right there. Your question, is Eichel off and pushing a little bit? Maybe, but he had 2 assists last night. I'm not going to think too much about that. Eichel was shooting a lot last night. He had 5 shot attempts as well. 5 shots, not 5 shot attempts, but 5 shots as well. So he was around it yesterday. He was creating time and space for the other players. Eichel looked much more like himself yesterday than he has. Flipping it to Mark Stone. Stone was effective. He had a point, obviously, yesterday. He had the goal in the game prior. And Stone, like, the difference is you see it with Eichel, right? Eichel, you can see in his skating, you can see in his ability to make things happen. Where Mark Stone, it's not necessarily as visible, even sometimes on the score sheet, but you just got to kind of trust if he's out there getting 22 minutes of ice time, that those are 22 positive minutes for the Golden Knights where they're going to control the neutral zone and apply some pressure. And he's going to be in the right place at the right time, no matter what the circumstances are. Stone can probably handle a little diversity better than Eichel at this point of his career.
Okay, so what were the total minutes? Because I had Eichel 15, 16. Is that right?
Mark Stone 22.56, Jack Eichel 22.30.
What am I looking at here? Okay, Eichel was at the head of the hockey stat card, and Shea Theodore second, Carlson third, Stone fourth. So they were in the top 4. At the bottom again, man. Pietrangelo, I don't want to dog that poor fella, but there's something.
No, he deserves to be dogged. It's the playoffs. He had a bad game. It's fair. Nothing wrong with that.
But he's had a lot of these bad games. Stone, I don't know if he's caught this, but he got slashed by Middleton, and on his, I think it was his right hand. So he was out for a little bit. It just stung. He went back on the ice. So that was pretty.
Brandon Saad, third to bottom on the hockey stat card. I thought
is it sad or is he very sad?
I thought now I'm calling him sad, like Coach Cassidy.
I know, same here. I know.
I thought Saad had an effective game. I thought he did a good job driving the net. I thought it was calling it a professional game is kind of cliche, but I thought he had a very experienced game from a veteran, I think is a good way to put it. I'm assuming he was probably out there again for at least one of the goals against, which is why he's so low on the hockey stat card. But I'm not going to put a lot of concern into that. Saad was even yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
1 shot on goal. I mean, a couple of attempts. So I don't know. I thought Saad was solid yesterday.
He had a presence. He did have a presence.
He had a presence. Is the perfect way to put that. Actually, I keep going back to Dorofeev. Dorofeev felt like he was lost. 5 shots on goal for Dorofeev. Maybe, I don't know if I'm just overthinking this here. 17 minutes of ice time, 19 shifts. But I don't know. I'll say this again. Game 6. Olofsson in, Dorofeev out.
Okay. Eichel coming to life. I think it's 11 shots now in the past 2 games, a +1. And Stone was a +1 last night also. So turning the corner. And as you mentioned yesterday, you definitely have to have their contributions if you're going to succeed in this series and throughout the playoffs.
It's funny because our second segment for the pregame was, can the Golden Knights advance if Mark Stone and Jack Eichel are basically ghosts as far as the score sheet goes? We're not dogging them. The reality is they had 2 points through the first 4 games of this series and looked relatively ineffective, at least on the offensive side of the ice. So last night, first period, 3 points between Jack and Mark. So that's definitely important right there. It's one thing if you felt like while you're watching them play that they were having effective minutes, but unfortunately they were busy watching Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov run circles around him. So again, I'm sure the third segment will be a Cassidy party, but he's just the matchup difference between him and Hines is so noticeable from games 4 and 5 on, obviously.
Coming up next, Bruce Cassidy played the matchup game very well. We'll talk about it next, right here on Locked On Golden Knights. Welcome back on Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco, the eye roll. Tony Cardasco and Chris
No ad reads.
Gawler.
Like, what do I do? I just sit here and I look stupid. Perfect.
You just, well, you don't know what to do with your hands. That's for sure.
Exactly.
We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day, especially our third-ranked friends from Singapore. They're still out there. Thank you so much.
Singapore keeps popping up in our timeline. What's up?
People are confounded just like we are on why. Okay, U.S., Canada, Singapore, number 3 as far as listenership for us. So they're confounded just like us. But we appreciate all of you tuning in around the world. Of course, don't forget Fridays, WTF, Saturdays, little Chris is fired up for the Chris Jr. show.
We better do it now.
So what were your observations of how Cassidy matched up there in Game 5 last night?
I think before that, I go back to my tweet that was between the third and fourth periods yesterday.
I had a lot of tweets last night.
It was having fun. So I think, let's see, playoff OT presents unique situations, tack on the fact that the next goal likely wins the series. Cassidy has succeeded many times in the playoffs. Hines has not. Edge belongs to VGK. And then the quote tweet a few minutes later was Cassidy trusted basically what we said right there and from the intern. So you have to fully credit how Cassidy has changed this series. And people are going to come out and say, coaches don't matter. Coaches are passengers. Some clown always trips me on YouTube, and I don't get it, but whatever. At least they watch the show, so thanks for that. But Cassidy putting Carlson and Eichel and having the balls, having the moxie to make such a big change. I mean, the team was down 2-1. It wasn't like the series was slipping away. It wasn't, oh my God, fire alarm, change everything. But Cassidy, you haven't seen, I think it was the 4th, 3rd, 5th game of the year, whatever it was. He puts William Carlson on the top line with Jack Eichel. And then jokingly in the press conference, someone asked, like, hey, okay, what are you doing? And Cassidy is like, I guess I probably should have asked Carlson if he's ever played wing before. So the fact that Coach Cassidy is willing to make the big move in the biggest of moments for the Golden Knights. I mean, hopefully the moments get bigger over the next, call it 45 days or so of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. But the fact that he's willing to make this big move and completely change the top line. You're not stopping that top line of the Minnesota Wild, but you're slowing him down a little bit while getting some offensive. I know it was a shorty, but at least you're getting Carlson and Eichel some offensive contributions now. So that's the first thing I'll go to with all this. And then now going back to the theme of this segment here, Cassidy didn't shut down the fourth line in overtime, and like a lot of teams will do in the playoffs. They'll run 2.5, 3 lines. That's what John Hines was going to do. You knew he was going to be just coming as much Boldy and Kaprizov as the Golden Knights could handle. Cassidy had the trust, kind of back to Steve Carp's question, I guess, a couple nights ago. Asking,
yeah, that was a good question. It was long-winded, Carpy, but
it was a good question, but it was a great question. When Carpy asks a question, it's usually pretty solid.
No, it was a really solid question, and it's a good question because Cassidy started to think, right? You could see him.
Yeah. Carpy's awesome. I wish we'd hear more of him in the post game.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, no. So credit Cassidy wins that game. We never even talked about the failed challenge from John Hines. That was that challenge was worse than the LA Kings challenge earlier in the week. I don't know what that dude was thinking, but there is a reason John Hines has never won a playoff.
He gambled and lost. He just took a gamble there.
I think they slipped something in the drink of the Minnesota Wild's goal review person, or I can't imagine the Minnesota Wild, who I'm sure they have their equivalent. Not equivalent might not be the right word, but I'm sure they have their like person somewhere up in the box way up in the press row.
The big ragu. They need a big ragu upstairs.
They need something. Maybe a dude instead of a Lebowski. But it was just, I don't know what they were looking like. I watched the goal in real time. We were actually eating pizza downstairs when it happened, but I watched it in real time. I'm like, okay, there's maybe a little something. And then I see they're challenging. I'm like, okay, they saw something. And they show 2 reviews. I'm like, this is going to be a 15-second review, and this is a good goal. What am I missing? It was an 18-second review, and it was a good goal. So Hines is losing the battle of the coaches. Cassidy trusts all of his players to get it done right now. And that's where this series has shifted thanks to Coach Cassidy.
Yeah, and VGK rolling 4 lines like we knew that they could, and now, of course, that 4th line is coming into play, especially late in the game.
And they were sick. I mean, they didn't get a lot of minutes last night, so we're talking about like they weren't rolling them the whole game. With overtime, Howden 10:46, Kolesar 8:33. I thought Kolesar had an effective game with limited minutes, and Tanner Pearson 7:48, but gets the OT apple.
Oh, man, he was good in overtime. He was really good, and then gets that apple there. I just wanted to harken back to the preseason. You talked about 2 centers on the same line. Remember, Cassidy said, who knows? Maybe we'll play 2 centers on the same line. Remember, because he had
He'll play
much
3 centers. Don't kid yourself. He's going to go out there with 4 centers one of these days.
He had strength up the middle, and so he was like, what am I going to do with all these centers? And he kept talking about that, and of course, that
never have
comes
too many centers on a roster.
big
You can
part.
never have too many quality centers, especially when they can win faceoffs.
We appreciate everyone tuning in, especially our everydayers. Thank you.
In Singapore.
Much. Our good friends from Singapore. Thank you so much. Of course, don't forget tomorrow the preview for game number 6. We both had it 4-2 VGK.
Yep.
So a lot of chips are in for us. And then Friday's WTF, Saturdays, Chris and Chris Jr., the triumphant return. We appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. For my man, Chris Golick, I am Tony Cardasco from Las Vegas. See you tomorrow right here on Locked On Golden Knights, and please take care.